pretty soon, hopefully.
Yeah.
I got fully vaccinated, so.
Woohoo!
Congratulations.
And we are being recorded, just so everyone knows.
So welcome, everybody. I think we have a whole bunch of folks that we know here, and I'm so happy to see your names. I just like to start by introducing to our transferring to a four-year program Zoom. I'd like to introduce Matt Sanchez, who's going to be our moderator today, and he's going to kind of smooth things over, introduce you to other people, and take your questions and spread them around. So I'll pass it over to you, Matt.
And Matt is a present student. Matt is a GCC student. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. In case you don't know me, my name is Matt. I'm currently in my second quarter of, or my second semester of at GCC. I'm a film student here, and yeah. Can the panelists introduce themselves, starting with Paula or Malcolm, actually?
Sure. I'm Malcolm Jones. Graduating this semester from CSUN, and I'm in television production.
Paula?
Hi, everybody. My name is Paula. I am I guess a second semester film student at CSUN in the film production option with producing emphasis. And I'm happy to be here.
And then we have Michelle.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Castillo. I am a recent graduate of San Francisco State University. My department was Broadcast and Electronic Communication Arts, and I graduated last spring 2020 with a focus in writing and business for aspects of media.
Thank you so much, all of you, for coming, by the way, and getting to talk about sort of just all this transfer program and sort of what we do here. So our first question is, before you transferred, what was your strategy to learning about schools, and what was your approach to applying for transfer? Let's start off with Malcolm.
Sure. For me, it was just kind of doing a lot of different research and looking for programs that would best suit, television production. And for applying to transfer, it was a lot of personal statements, a lot of essays, a lot of looking around, doing a little bit more detail on that. And yeah.
Paula?
Well, for me, when I went back to school, I didn't really have a plan for anything. I didn't know if I was going to be there for a semester. I didn't know whether I was actually going to pursue a full BA. Because I had been out of school for so long, it just didn't seem feasible for me, or I couldn't visualize exactly how that path would go. Once I started at GCC and started taking the film and media classes, I was like, oh, you know what? This might be something I want to pursue long term. And because I was so involved in the program at GCC, both Jerry and Deb were really influential in terms of which schools I would go to, because they would always talk about CSUN and how, a lot of what they taught in their classes was also taught in the CSUN program. So for me, it just seemed like a natural transition for me to go from just sort of like the foundation of what I was learning at UCC and continue that at a more advanced level at CSUN. So, and also as far as costs, my other two choices would have been either UCLA or USC. And I just realized I didn't want to get into that much debt, crippling. Michelle agrees. Because that still is a scary thing for me when I think of when I get out of school, all the debt that, I've incurred over over these past few years. I mean, it's great to go to a great school with great connections and such like USC, but at the end of the day, I didn't want to have to pay $100,000 to, the government for my loans and so forth. So I was kind of long-winded, but I just wanted to give people kind of more of an understanding of what my journey was.
That's great. Michelle, do you have any?
Yeah, going back to what Malcolm and Paula said, I related to a lot of theirs as well. I did a lot of research, and based on like what I personally wanted to get out of my education, and I really enjoyed television and film, but I felt that GCC really gave me all the foundations for what I wanted to learn about film. So that's why I took more of a broader department at San Francisco State, because they had just other options that I wanted to expand on my learning about radio, television, newscast, podcasting, different areas that I wanted to kind of learn about and discover. And the other options that I looked into, just like Paula said, were like a little too expensive. And I personally wanted a faster track, as I wanted to graduate within 1 to 2 years. And I realized that a lot of the curriculum from GCC would transfer over to San Francisco State. So that was one of the main reasons why I chose to go there compared to other schools that I had as options. And I also realized that, just like Paula was saying, that even though you want to get those connections and you want to have like a big network of a lot of people at any school, you'll make connections and network with different people, and you'll always find like people who are willing to help you out. And I found that at San Francisco State, and I knew people who had gone there, who had been at part of the Department of Broadcast and Electronic Communications. So I had a good feeling that I would fit right into what I wanted to get out of my school. So definitely research the classes that you want to take and what you want to get out of your education, because they do have a film program as well. So if that's one of your options, they also have that if you want to go towards that path.
It's really interesting how like all of our different like journeys at like GCC has sort of led us to like all of these different things. But just sort of leading into that, and Paula and Michelle and everyone sort of answered this, but what did you find valuable at GCC that helped you adjust and succeed in your 4-year program?
Yeah, honestly, a lot of that, can't even speak. A lot of what I got out of GCC was, fabulous teachers like Jerry and Deb, who really inspired me to look past not only like the work I was doing, but what I could be doing, what I could be talking about from a storytelling perspective. And a lot of that was gained not only in the classes, but also in the experience of going to Sundance and things like that. And it's an experience that I don't even think I could ever replicate again. So I just want to say thanks to you both and everyone at GCC for that experience. And Paula and Michelle know that too. So that was fantastic as well. But yeah, I just gained a lot, I think, that really prepared me for thinking out of the box when it came to transferring and the kind of projects and work that I want to do now.
I think a lot of us can relate to that. Oh, yes.
Yeah, I have to kind of second everything that Malcolm said. I just found that as soon as I started taking film media classes, like the environment was so supportive. Like Malcolm said, the opportunity to go to Sundance for me kind of came out of nowhere. And at that point, I was at the very beginning of deciding to be a filmmaker. And it really, that whole experience kind of was kind of emotional, but it really changed my life. Because when you find out for the first time what you really want to do, it's so rewarding and it's so satisfying. And it was really unlike anything I'd ever experienced before in my career journey. So it really did change my life in the way that this is something that I'm doing now. And this is something that I'm extremely motivated in and extremely passionate about. And if I hadn't had that support and been in the kind of environment where I could just like go to students and be like, hey, let's start, this organization, let's get the film club revved up again. And, everybody was like, yeah, sure. Like, wow, this is amazing. So for me, it was just very important to have that support because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. All I knew is I wanted to go back to school and I wanted to be, I wanted to revamp my entire career because I'd been working in television, corporate television for so long, and just basically doing financial stuff. But I wanted to be so creative, and so that environment really helped foster the creativity that had been so neglected in me. So, I mean, it was a really emotional experience because I had no idea how much I would come to love it and how much a part of my life that it would ultimately be.
That's that's amazing. Michelle, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think what Paula just said was like covered a lot. I definitely agree that at GCC, especially with the media department, I personally felt like I had a lot of support and guidance from Deb and Jerry and other professors there, Carly. And it was so easy to build those relationships with them because they really cared about us succeeding and figuring out like our paths. And with my peers as well, I know I made a lot of great friendships with people and networking opportunities that I still have to this day. And it's so awesome that I can just like call them up, even though I haven't seen them in 2 years, and ask them if they are available for a job or if they need help. And I think GCC and the media department, especially what Jerry and Deb have created, gave us the foundation for us to feel so comfortable to be able to reach out to them and to like know that we'll have the support from our peers and our staff, which is really hard to find a lot of times in educational, like big schools, especially. So for sure, Glendale Community College like lived up to the community part of it for me because I just felt like I really connected with a lot of people. And just on another side note, uh, the media department had a lot of to do with how I felt comfortable using equipment and like being able to learn things that I feel like had I gone to 4 years straight away, I wouldn't have been able to kind of grow independently or have other broader ideas. And like you really get to meet a lot of diversity and different people around you because you'll be taking a class with someone like Paula said, like she came back after so many years to school, and it's inspiring because me having gone through like the usual, you get out of high school, you go to a 4 year, and then deciding to go to a community college, it was it was really inspiring to me to see that you can still come back and like figure yourself out, and there's always opportunity out there, and if you continue to discover new things, like you will find what you were looking for. And I think community college really is that like space where you can really learn and discover things. And I think GCC did a great job for me personally to like look for that path that I wanted to take with film and television for sure.
I think one of the things that I've thoroughly had the pleasure of having while I'm at GCC is the amount of information that we've had for like transferring and the amount of help you've had for that. For you guys, when you transferred, did you have to apply with a portfolio? And if so, did you have to apply before you matriculated?
For me, I at the time CSUN did had the television option, the film option, but at the time television didn't have a portfolio needed to register. But for the Sundance, we actually did have to create a type of portfolio for the program or for the experience. So I did have a chance to experience creating a portfolio. And whether you needed to apply to your next school or your next job, I would highly recommend making one as soon as possible.
Well, for me, I applied to CSUN, and so just so everybody has an understanding, you aren't automatically admitted into the film program right off the bat. Like Malcolm said, you do have to submit a portfolio, and there's just one thing I want to kind of let anyone that's interested in transferring to the CSUN film production option know. In order to, not only do you have to have acceptance of your portfolio, but what a lot of students don't know and what I didn't know is that you have to have photography I think it's like a basic photography course to get into the program as well. So if you don't have that course and you want to just apply so that you can get into the program right away, then definitely take that photography course, or else you're going to have to take it and then be admitted into the program. That might save you a semester of time, because had I known that, I would have taken that earlier. And that way I would have applied, if I had had a plan, I would have taken that earlier and then been admitted right into the program and ended up, taking 4 semesters instead of 5. So that's just one thing I wanted to mention. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention that not a lot of people are aware of is that you can graduate with an AA, like an associate's degree, or you can graduate with an AST. Now, an AST is an associate in science for transfer. Now, when you get an AST, you actually take less courses than you would need to take for an AA. But it's called for transfer because the idea is that you're taking courses to ultimately go to a 4-year school. That will save you a semester or 2 as well if you choose. If you know for sure that you want to pursue a BA, I would recommend the AST because I didn't have to take health. I think there was one other course I didn't have to take. So it literally saved me like, $6,000 in terms of my financial aid to be able to do that. And I knew that I wanted to get a BA. So that's just one thing when, and a lot of the counselors at GCC, bless their hearts, they don't know this, and they, basically tell everybody, oh, you need to take this class, this class, this class. And there are a lot of there's like a few classes you don't have to take if you choose to do the AST route. I just wanted to let everybody know that so they could learn from my journey, because it really did help me.
Yeah, going off on what Paula said, I got the AST, the Associate Science for Transfer, and that was like, it really pushed my graduation speed. Like I only had to take 2 extra semesters and I finished within a year my degree, which was kind of like, I didn't expect that. But when you really plan it out and do your research, the AST really is beneficial for you if like you just want a quick path to finish your degree. If you finish your IGETC as well, I know that's a certification that covers like all the general education plus a couple of electives that you could choose from the actual major you want to take and you're planning to transfer into. And it's really helpful because I know at San Francisco State they had the option of sorry, I saw a message and my train of thought went away. They have the option of if you had taken a course at your community college and you were perhaps missing a credit or 2 to finish your degree at the university, they're willing to exchange that elective from the community college into your degree at the 4-year university. So there's a lot of loopholes that you can work through it if you want to fast track your graduation speed. So definitely the AST for transfer and look into the IGETC. But it's always good to plan and just look at your transcripts every semester to kind of compare based on like what school you want to go to and the department that you're looking at. Because oftentimes you'll think you have all the classes and then you'll see that one class, and at 4 years university, it'll happen where they only offer it like once every 2 years or one semester. And then because there's a lot of those programs are impacted, you won't be able to get into it the semester you wanted because of how scheduling works and stuff. And usually transfer students don't get to choose classes priority registration as much. So it's really important just to like have a plan, then have a backup plan, and then have another backup plan. But overall, yeah, the AST was a really good one to mention for sure. For my department, I didn't have to have a portfolio, which was one of the reasons why I was like really in, like I wanted to go into the department for broadcast and electronic communications. But I know for the film program at SF State, you do have to have a portfolio, and they base it off of that because it is more impacted. So it's a bit more competitive to get into. which is understandable because I'm sure a lot of other schools, I'm sure Season does it as well. It's just there's a lot of people who want to get into it, and that's how they kind of like work it. But do even though I would suggest using the projects you do at GCC to put into those portfolios, because you never know, like even though it might have been an assignment or something, like that could really be helpful to just show, that you know teamwork, and you have certain skills that you can't really like explain in a piece of paper. And by showing like I was part of this project, and I did a deadline, and I had all this done at my community college, like that says something about you. So don't erase those projects, keep them in a hard drive, because they might come in handy for your portfolios in the future.
Absolutely, Michelle, you make a really important point. Like my portfolio for CSUN was literally an assignment that I had done in Jerry's class. It was COVID. I'm going to blame COVID. I was like, I can't do this. And then I was like, no, you know what? Let's see if I can work something out. And it worked. So don't take for granted unless you got a C on the project, then I wouldn't recommend that. But if you did well in those projects, and really a lot of the courses at GCC translate well into, I think any California State University the program in terms of what is learned. There might be discrepancies, but I learned enough to be able to like hit the ground running when I went there. And so now I'm just kind of shaping the nuances of my education with more in-depth courses. But definitely don't take for granted what you do at GCC, because I have recycled work, I have recut stuff to use in stuff. Just as a filmmaker and a media maker, it's just really important to keep everything in one place so that you can easily access it. Get yourself a nice hard drive and cherish it, because it could be your ticket into like a whole new level of experience.
So yeah, speaking of like the stuff that you do at GCC and like all of your assignments, how do you think that community college prepared you for your current classes? And while at GCC, do you wish that you had focused on something that you originally hadn't? I know we answered this, but just to sort of expand on it.
Sure. Um, yeah, community college did a good job of like letting you know you can create a schedule and you can really set yourself up for your most productive self. At least for me, when I went to CSUN, especially because I lived in the dorms for the first 2 semesters. I got a chance to really I work better in the morning, so from a scheduling perspective. But also because I had to take some night classes, because certain night classes at GCC were only offered at night. So that prepared me for taking night classes when I had to take night classes at CSUN. So that was really helpful. Uh, yeah, more scheduling things, and just to kind of, I guess, more hit on what I kind of wish I focused a little bit more on. If you're struggling with any of your A through G requirements, uh, really kind of try to get tutoring or get help if you really need it. It's very helpful. Math was that for me, so I had to work twice as hard, and I still had to kind of even work in the summer to help myself even transfer on time. So it was an intense experience, but I'm glad I did it, and I got to transfer, and now I'm graduating, which is fantastic. And so I would just, if it ever feels like difficult or tough at times, what you're doing now will set the groundwork for what you do later.
Absolutely. Okay. My biggest things, and two come to mind right away as far as how it prepared me, how GCC prepared me. Number one is working with groups. Okay, now I don't know anybody that's like, oh, I can't wait to work in a group, unless you know who's actually going to be in that group, what their skill level is, how they're going to contribute, et cetera, et cetera. GCC prepared me to work in group setting. I hated groups. I'm still not a fan, but it really helped me as a producer, because you get to know people that, because there's one in every group. There's that person that's like, over eager and wants to help and like is super helpful and super creative and super has a great work ethic, we love those people. Those are the people that, you hire. Those are the people that you want to collaborate with. Then there's that person that it doesn't really know why they're in school. They thought, media would be fun, so that person's always a wild card. They could end up being brilliant or they could end up being, completely useless. Then there's the person that literally wants to get a degree, thinks they want to do film, and just wants to skate on by and ride on everybody else's coattails to the end. So, me being an impatient person, those kind of people absolutely drive me crazy. And I know I've had conversations with Jerry where I'm just like, no, they're terrible. And Jerry's like, now, Paula, you're being too judgmental. I'm like, no, I can't, And so it really helped me to be patient and also be a more effective leader and producer, because I'm finding out now at CSUN, the same people are there, and these people have actually applied to a film program, and you would think that they know what they want to do and what their trajectory is. But lo and behold, there's always going to be one person like, oh yeah, I didn't see that email because what had happened was, and I'm like, we don't care what had happened was, just help, we need your help. And you have to work with that person. I mean, literally, there have been times where I wanted to do all the editing myself. I'm like, listen, I can't. And sometimes you do end up doing a lot of the stuff that you don't think are your job. But you're, instead of, getting hypertension, now I see it as, in the real world, you're gonna have to deal with these people in a professional setting. And it really helped me, get into a position where I'm not tearing people down, and not attacking people because, they're so frustrating, but giving them enough constructive criticism and encouragement so that they can actually do the job and not feel completely demoralized or feel like, they're hated. And, because you don't want to create that kind of an atmosphere in any group setting. So long story short, that is one of the main things that GCC taught me. The other thing that I wanted to say was, do never underestimate your fellow students. Like Malcolm will know, like the first day I walked into the lab, or no, actually, no, the first day of the second semester, I was just like, where's the iMovie? How come there's no iMovie on any of the lab computers? And Malcolm was like, girl, you still using iMovie? Like, what are you talking about? And it was like through people like Malcolm and Michelle and other people that had already been in the program and kind of, we're used to using, Premiere Pro and Pro Tools and Audition and After Effects and all this stuff. Like I learned from them. I was so fascinated. It was like a whole new world for me. And Malcolm, do you remember at the end of one semester, like I was editing something and you're like, dang, you went from iMovie.
Could never forget, Paula. Could never forget.
The growth. And it felt so good. It was so encouraging. Like, I mean, it was literally like I won and I'm still winning. So there you go. Don't underestimate your fellow students and what they're able to teach you as well.
Yeah, going off on what both Malcolm and Paula said, for Malcolm's scheduling, I definitely think Glendale prepared me to like know myself and know that I'm not going to take an 8 a.m. class. So not even try and like choose to get those morning classes, because I personally work better in the afternoon or late at night. So definitely Glendale taught me how to like get to know myself better and how I work, how I study better, and how to choose classes that I know I'm going to be willing to like put the effort and time into, and that I'm going to get something out of. And for what Paula was saying about teamwork, definitely at San Francisco State and the department that I was part of, it's a lot of group work. Like every single class, you're gonna have to work with someone because it's the name of the game for any type of job in media, unless you want to be an editor. But even then, you have to learn how to like work with other people. But in any job, honestly, you have to kind of learn how to have communication skills and patience, because there's always going to be miscommunication one way or another. And I know at Glendale, because it's a community college, there was just so much diversity in the classes and so many different age groups. And I think that really helped me in preparing myself for my 4-year, where it was just very similar. Like the age groups were very different. The diversity was very different. It was a lot in San Francisco. So I felt very prepared from GCC going into those classes because I kind of knew from beforehand to be observant, to kind of feel out people, see what the group dynamic was going to be like, whether I needed to be more assertive in certain situations, you know, who I needed to like kind of watch out for, like how I could see the project going in the future. Like, is this gonna be a bust, or is this like, are we really gonna like get down to grinding? And I think the other part with scheduling, especially working with groups, is when you're in community college, you know, a lot of people are working. And so you have to figure out how you're going to meet up and like how you're going to get things done. And it's really a lot of the same when you're at a 4-year. People are like having internships and they're working, and like they have a whole life outside of it. Some people are commuting to the university, some live on campus. So it's really finding that balance with the people you work with and learning to be understanding. And you know, there's always going to be obstacles and problems that you're going to have to face, but it's honestly just like controlling yourself and like your reactions to how those obstacles are going to like mess the dynamic. Like we can freak out and we could be like, this is going to like be a total disaster, or we could be like, okay, we just kind of have to get over it and just like, we have a job to do and get it done. So there's a lot of what I took away from Glendale's work dynamic with groups and the people I met that I took with me to San Francisco and the department that I worked in, for sure.
So we've sort of compared how our experiences at GCS sort of like, we've sort of taken that and put into how we are at our universities. But I know one of the things a lot of people are worried about is like the workload in between, difference between like community college and your current
4
school.
years.
Yeah. So how does that sort of differ between community college and your current schools?
Yeah, when it comes to more media classes, I would say it's more or less about the same in certain aspects. Like Paula and Michelle were talking about, there's a lot more group work, so it's a bit more divided. But as also everyone knows from group work, not everyone always puts in their fair share, so sometimes you got to do a little bit more. But when it comes to like upper division requirements, I would say there's a bit more reading and writing involved than at the community college level, which I don't say that to frighten you. I think it's actually a great thing because you get to study things that you may have not thought you could study at community college. Because I just found some upper division courses that I didn't know were a thing. For instance, I found out there was a comic book class that involved me reading and writing and creating my own comic books. And that was an upper division class that I never knew existed, which was super exciting. And I recommend anyone here to check it out if you're interested in CSUN. And yeah, so stuff like that, I would say.
Yeah, for sure, Malcolm. For me, the experience is a little different in that I feel like when I was at GCC, I had a little bit more of a rhythm in terms of like, okay, I know this is due today, I know this is due today, I know this is due today. So I could really keep consistent with a certain rhythm. At CSUN is different because you go to classes and there are a lot of lectures and like no assignments, and you're like, oh, this will be a breeze. And then comes the boom, and you're like, oh my God, everything is due. Like you've got 5 papers due, you've got all kinds of exams and projects. And so it's just interesting because I feel like there's a less of a boom like that at GCC, because it's just sort of like, okay, I've done all my work and now I'm going to take a final exam. But I feel that in CSUN you're kind of like lured into this idea like, oh, I can relax, but yeah, you can't relax. It's all cumulative at the end, and it will hit you. So that was like my main experience. And also I only had 1 semester of well, I had one semester at GCC of COVID, but all my semesters at CSUN have been COVID or Zoom classes. So I can't really even tell you, how it would be different because I've never had any other experience. But the Zoom class experience, I felt that, Deb did a great job in just trying to keep everybody engaged and, reaching out to people. And this was like in the first months of COVID, and nobody knew what was going on. And we thought we were going to go back to school, child. We were like, yes, all right, what are we gonna, see, oh wait, no, oh, we're closed. Oh, okay, this is it. But I'm hopefully now that we're going to go back into the fall, I'll have more of a sense of, what it's like at CSUN. But I just really miss my experience at GCC, and being able to actually see people. And, there would, like Michelle said, the community, is really, really great. Because of the diversity, and because people are so different, and because you're able to learn and see different points of view, and also have, a very engaged faculty that, are committed to you learning. And they're just kind of like, well, if you don't want to learn, bye. Like they're gonna, they're nurturing, but they're not gonna coddle you. You have to do the work. So I miss that community, to be honest.
Yeah, for me at San Francisco State, the workload was amplified for sure. And it was so different because when you get to those upper division classes, you have a lot of freedom in the different classes you get to choose. And there was just so much various classes that I decided to take that I really had to learn how to compartmentalize and organize, because some class would be very technical, learning equipment, and very, very much in like production, hands-on type of classes. And others were, like Malcolm said, a lot of research, writing papers. And then others, it's like a work dynamic, like I had to work with a lot of people. And so it was really, for me personally, it was similar to what I did at GCC. It was just even more so, and it was a lot of projects throughout the semester. So even though at GCC we may have one big project that we got to work for the whole semester, at San Francisco State, for me, I had multiple projects that were very big, and I had to work and figure out, like, okay, I can't focus on this project until I get this one done. And just like learning how to schedule everything in, and like learn not to forget the deadlines, and meeting up with people and seeing like, okay, I need to do this for this class, I need to do that for that class. So a lot of planning and organizing for sure with the workload. And the other thing I wanted to mention, it totally slipped my mind. I'm so sorry, guys, but yes, a lot of the workload from GC is just really amplified at San Francisco State. So yeah, plan it out for sure.
So since we just talked about sort of what's different from our workload, let's switch over to what surprised you guys the most about being at your institution.
I'd have to say the biggest surprise was more of a culture shock, if anything. I went from seeing some of the coolest, most fun people I've ever met at GCC, where I was talking to everyone the second I walked in the door, to being introduced to a very new, very bigger group of people, which which was a good experience, a good shock to have, but it was definitely different. For me, living on campus, um, I really found myself really enjoying the amenities of the campus a lot. I started going to the gym. They have a phenomenal gym, and I found out they had a Foley room, and I fell in love with that because I love sound. And the editing booths for audio and visual were fantastic at CSUN as well. And the community was pretty open arms, actually, from the faculty perspective. And I don't know if that necessarily shocked me, but I really enjoyed feeling like I found a new home at CSUN, even though I still have my home at GCC. yeah, I would say the shock was really just falling in love with another community again was my bigger shock.
Yeah, I feel like my biggest shock was not everybody got the education that we did at GCC. Like there are people coming from community colleges where I'll say something and they'll be like, "What?" I'm like, "How do you not know that?" Like literally, you don't know what a picture lock is, and you're in, I don't understand, and you're an editor, but that's what you come to understand. Like, I mean, GCC is a community college, but the media program and a lot of other programs, to be honest, are really, really in the know, and like the information that you're getting is direct from the pipeline of the industry. And I feel like some community colleges just have these very archaic programs, where they're still, I mean, which is cool too, because, some programs are actually like cutting film, I guess, or doing something that, is kind of obsolete, but is still really cool and artistic. But as far as the knowledge that you need in order to get into the industry and know what you're talking about and know the jargon, I mean, there's so much jargon. And so I felt that GCC, just the environment and the community, and also the fact that, I was so involved and having so much fun, you pick up so much. And so that's the main difference. I was really surprised when I got there, or shocked, if you will, to know that, that knowledge isn't exactly consistent across the board from other community or 2-year schools.
Yeah, definitely, Paula. For me, what surprised me the most, I would say, was uh, GCC had really good equipment and very new applications that you got to use for free. So that was one thing that I was very grateful after I had transferred, that GCC really gave us the tools for free to be able to explore and learn at our own pace, that whether it's Premiere Pro, Final Draft, and different applications. Like my school, they had a media lab, but it didn't have you had to pay for your own subscriptions, which was kind of a shocker for me for certain applications, not others. But that's one thing that I was like shocked about at first. And also equipment wise, they had really state of the art for certain equipment, but other equipments, they were just old and worn, and it was just a bit of a shocker, or sometimes I only had it for like a really limited amount of time, where I was so used to at GCC, if I wanted to extend my checkout, like I was able to do that. And so at a 4-year, it does become more limited how long you're able to use their equipment and stuff. And the other thing that also surprised me are the professors, because I felt so supported at GCC. I kind of seeked that out at San Francisco State, and there were a lot of them, of my new professors, that I really connected with, and they just wanted to like help me succeed, and they got me connections and networking opportunities. But then there's other professors that are just there to teach, and they have their own lives going on, and it's kind of like you have to figure out those dynamics. And overall, all the professors are willing to communicate with you, and like if you make yourself, if you put yourself out there to have those relationships with your professors at a 4-year at community college, it's really a benefit to you, because a lot of times you'd be surprised how much they really want to help you out, and they'll be there for you when you have issues, or you're just confused, or you have questions and stuff. So definitely like make those connections. Don't be afraid to like make an impression to someone, like meet your professors. I know you might be like, oh, they're busy and stuff, but they're there for a reason. They chose to teach students for a reason. So it's always like the worst they can do is say, oh, sorry, no, I'm busy or whatnot. And I think the final thing that surprised me is class size. There's certain classes, even through upper division, that will be really large just because they're very popular and people want to take them, and they have a great curriculum. So you'd be surprised that maybe that's not the type of class that you want to get into, because it just might feel like you're not getting that one-on-one attention, and other classes might be smaller, and you work better in those types of classes. So just be mindful of that. If you see a class that's like 200 plus students in it, like if that's not your work environment, then maybe reconsider what other classes you can take. But yeah, just those are a couple of things that to be mindful of.
Switching gears over a little bit, what advice would you give your younger self in the semester or two before making that transition over to a university? What do you wish you knew then that you knew now?
For me, it kind of really comes down to I was putting a lot of myself and energy into my schoolwork, but also I was taking a lot of time kind of dealing with stuff at home and things like that. I guess the only thing I could really think to tell myself back then is to try to sweat the small stuff, things that weren't as imperative at the time, and really just kind of focus a little bit more on just me and me succeeding. Uh, that's something I wish I knew a little bit more, or I could tell myself 2 semesters before.
Yeah, I think for me, I have to reiterate what I said earlier. Had I known, I would have taken a photography class and had started my application into the film program a lot sooner. So I could have saved myself some time. So planning is so important. Like be obsessed with your whole curriculum, like how long it's going to take you, check all the boxes and make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing in the moment, because the worst thing is finding out you have to take a class because you didn't you know you didn't plan, you didn't look at the requirements, or you missed something. Like I was just obsessed. Like I would check in with my counselors, and also the equity center has amazing counselors. If you're an underrepresented student, if you're a Black or a person of color, or basically any underrepresented population, the Equity Center has amazing counselors. Like they know their stuff inside and out a lot better than the actual admissions department. I don't know, and literally I feel like the turnover in admissions is kind of high. But because when I first went there, to the admission center, the guy was asking me like what I should do, and I'm like, I'm coming, you should tell me. So that is a resource that helped me along. The Equity Center will give you an iPad if you don't have a computer. They'll give you a bus pass if you can't afford one. They'll give you a meal pass so you can get meals. And when I went back to school, I was on the struggle bus. Like I had no money. I was working like part-time occasionally. My rent was LA rent, so I don't need to really say more about that. And I had bills and I had nothing. The equity department really saved my butt, like so many times. So that's just something that I would recommend. Like if you haven't already, like go there and get your resources, please. It will literally save your life.
I guess for me, what I would tell my younger self would be not to put too much pressure on myself, and to enjoy the time I had left at GCC for sure. Because sometimes I get too focused on like what my next move is and like what's gonna happen, and I need to figure out what I have to do next. And really, like looking back at it now, a lot of great memories that I made were in the last 2 semesters at GCC, and the connections that I got to like live through and still have to this day. So like living in the moment and enjoying that like kind of chill vibe of community college before being bombarded with so much work and a whole different environment, like it's really nice to just kind of take a breather and enjoy being in like the routine that you created at GCC, and being grateful to things that you might not have thought of at the moment, because later on you'll see like, oh, okay, yeah, GCC really had a lot to offer compared to what I thought I would be getting at other places. So yeah, definitely not to take myself too seriously, I guess would be what I would say to my younger self.
All right, while we ask this next question, feel free to, we're going to do a little question and answer type thing. Feel free to type any questions that you guys have in the chat. I know we already sent a message out, but feel free to send any while we ask this question, and we'll answer them. Yeah. So while we wait for those questions to come in, just sort of really quickly describe what you guys are doing next, or what projects you have, or anything like that.
For sure, just doing some freelance editing and some recording for some projects I'm doing, working on a podcast. That's been interesting. And hopefully just a little bit of vacation after the semester, really.
Yeah, just working on a lot of different projects. We just wrapped our group project, which I'm really proud of. Hopefully making a lot more music, because I'm a musician, a vocalist, and I like to kind of mix media and music. So hopefully doing that, and also kind of starting up my YouTube channel again, just, just creating.
For me, I've been doing a lot of freelancing, mostly ghostwriting and like a couple of social media managing gigs here and there. But I personally want to go back to working on sets. So that's one of the things that, now that things are opening up back up, and I'm back in LA, now that I'm gonna get fully vaccinated and stuff, I'd hope to like start working on sets once again.
So does anyone have any questions they want to ask them? I know Malcolm put his podcast in the chat if you want to go check that out. If you guys want to drop any of your like channels or any links to any of your stuff so people can go check it out, feel free to do so in the chat. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions that they want to drop in the chat? If not, we can just move on to the... Okay. So does anyone have any closing remarks, advice, thoughts, or anything you have for incoming students that are looking to transfer?
I'll go. I guess my advice or encouraging words are, don't get discouraged. I know like with the whole pandemic thing, things kind of like got on a standstill, and now that things are opening back up, we kind of feel like, okay, like I don't know how I lived my life before this, like now I gotta go back to that. But yeah, I know being a student can be very difficult, and then changing your whole life with this whole pandemic, and like learning at home might have been difficult for some of you, but just don't get discouraged, just keep at it. I personally love to set goals because it kind of gives me accountability. So if it's like one small goal you could do daily to keep you like up and motivated, I would definitely recommend it. And just know that, don't feel like you're alone with the struggling boat. Like everyone's struggling in one way or another, but we're all like gonna get through it somehow, some way. And even though I personally am not a student anymore at GCC, like I feel like I have a whole family there. So if anyone ever wants to like reach out to me or have personal questions, maybe you didn't want to ask here today on the chat, I'll put my email down there, and you're more than welcome to ask me anything you'd like that you might have not felt comfortable asking today.
Absolutely, Michelle. I'll put my email in down there as well. And the one thing that I just want to reiterate, because it's so important and it was so crucial to me when I was a student, is be vigilant about knowing what your resources are. And like Michelle said before, GCC has an incredible, vast resources for media. And no one's been using them, so they're in great shape. When you get back, they'll be there for you. You might have to wipe off the dust, but they will be brand new and ready to go because I know Jerry like went to bat to get some of the best equipment out there. And just be vigilant about your resources, like go to the equity center, find out, what your student discounts are, you know what I mean? Like take it seriously, like tell people I'm a student, and people be like, oh, okay. And the thing is to use this opportunity to make contacts in the industry, because a lot of people that are high on that ladder will talk to a student, but when you're out there looking for a job, you won't even be able to, they will not give you the time of day. But when you're a student, they'll be like, okay, I'll do an interview with you. Okay, I'll talk to you. Use your time as a student, like capitalize on that label, because you will get a lot of resources and make a lot of contacts that once you're out there, you're going to be like, what happened? Where did everybody go? And they're just like, oh no, now you're in the pool. Now you got to swim, and so that's the one thing I would say, like know your resources, be vigilant about them, and also take advantage of the fact that you're a student and get what's yours.
To piggyback on that, absolutely, if you have questions, I can be emailed too. Yeah, I definitely, like Paula said, utilize being a student for as long as you can. There's a lot of programs that I've been able to get discounts on due to it. There's a lot of opportunities that I've been able to get to for being a student. Even like one of the internships I got for this coming semester would have only happened because of being a student and a professor knowing me, and really utilizing that relationship, using that, asking a professor like, hey, is there an opportunity for me somewhere? You never know what's possible or what can happen. And honestly, just cherish this experience. I think is the one of the best things I can really say. COVID was difficult for everyone for a lot of different reasons. And if you're able to get through this hurdle, the rest is kind of just what it is. You can get through it. And I'm proud to say that I'm a GCC student. I still have my GCC t-shirt. I still wear it every now and then. I love being a part of the film club with Paula. I love the fact that I got a chance to go to Sundance with Michelle and all of them. It was a really great experience. And like I said, I can't duplicate it. So really enjoy your time here. Enjoy your time on the next thing as well.
Well, that just about wraps up the panel. Once again, thank you to the three panelists for joining us today, Malcolm, Paula, and Michelle. Thank you to the media department, Professor Deal and Professor Orley for organizing this and letting us have these resources to be able to listen to a lot of experienced people. So yeah, does anyone have anything else to say, or